and welcome everybody aboard the Tabletop Express. This is Creators Corner. We are right back from PAX Unplugged. We're not going to stop. We got to keep going. And I want to just start by quickly encouraging people to also stay tuned because next week we've got our PAX Unplugged event where we're going to unwrap that on Call Aboard. But today we are here with the co-designers of a game that is on Kickstarter right now. I want to stress that because you still have a chance after you learn about this game to go jump over there and learn more. But Shake That City is a game coming out from AEG. And I am lucky to be joined by both of those co-designers. And I want to give you both a chance to kind of introduce yourselves to everybody here. So first and foremost, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And can you both tell me a little bit about yourselves and that relationship that formed to create this game? Because we talked about this a little bit before, and you were telling me how this came about a little bit during COVID or a little bit before COVID, and then really came through during COVID in terms of a lot of the work together.
Yeah. Would you start off, Mads?
Oh yeah, I can I can start. So hi, I'm Mads. I'm one of the co-designers, and so we met up, Kåre and I, about 2 years ago, and Kåre, he reached out to me. I showed him some of my other games, and he made a solo version for one of my other games, and he was looking into. He wanted to design some more games, and he wanted actually to take some time off his work, his day job, to dedicate some time to design games, also with other designers. Of which I was one of those designers that he wanted to work with. And so we met up and we just started pitching a lot of ideas for each other. And one of the ideas that came out of that was Shake That City. That's the very short version. Yeah. I think Kåre, he can probably elaborate a little bit more on it.
Yeah. And hello, I'm Kåre. I'm the other co-designer. And I can elaborate without making it into a long history lesson. We did a lot of the design initially under the first COVID time, and actually designing a game that has a very clear physical component. I think we'll get back to that later. Online was a bit of a special experience, but we had a pretty focused effort, and we're pitching already in the autumn of MS has the game there. Already in the autumn of 2020, and signed the contract late 2020, and here we are now. I think that is a brief version.
Well, I want to dig into the game for quite a bit here, but before we do that, I have a very important question that I have asked everyone who has come on this show, so I can't not ask both of you. But what was your kind of origin in board games? Does it go back to childhood? Is it a more recent and maybe more modern game? But what is both of your origins in terms of the board gaming industry and the hobby?
Yeah, so for my part, a little bit of both. So all the way back when I was a child, I was introduced to The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, and that sort of got me hooked on the fantasy, and from there on into role-playing games and board games and LARPing, and that's a sort of a mixed together community here in Denmark. So I alternated between those for most of my life. It's been my primary hobby, but mostly LARPing and role-playing games for many years, and board games was always sort of a side thing. And then I think it was first Citadels, and that got my eyes open to say, okay, there is something different happening in board games than when I was a child. And then Dominion really was the kicker that got me hooked, diving into board games. And a couple of years, maybe a handful of years after that, I sort of got the interest to start designing board games as well.
Dominion, by the way, I will say, because Ryan Espin is here. Ryan is co-conductor here on the channel, and I know Ryan loves Dominion, so I have to, and has a lot of history with that one, so I had to bring him up and note that. So good to see you here, Ryan. He says Dominion hooked him too. What about you? What was the game? What was the game for you that kind of got you in and got games to the table?
And you're talking to me?
Oh yes, I'm so sorry. Yeah, of course.
Okay. So I guess I played card games and such with my grandmother as a child, and then for the longest time, I'm only playing, mass market games. One of which was Catan. That was or the Settlers of Catan. It's just kind of, I know it's a hobby game for most people, but for me it was just one of those games that you could buy at a supermarket almost many years ago. And then I went from that to playing Arkham Horror with my girlfriend at the time, and this is more than 10 years ago, I want to say. We thought that was supposed to be like the coolest game, and it was supposed to be like it was way up there on the BGG top 100 list at the time, and all that. And we just had the worst experience with it because we were such noobs. So just reading the rule book and again and again and looking up stuff, and it was just too big of a leap for us. So it was completely a horror story in that sense.
Literally.
And actually from that day, I said to myself, okay, if this is supposed to be one of the best games out there, like ever, I can do better than that. So that's kind of what started me getting into designing board games. And then I started a Facebook group for other people interested in board game design in Denmark. And I thought maybe this will be a group of 5 people if I'm lucky. And where we are now, I think we're like 2,500 people or something in that group. I can't remember exactly, but it's a lot for a Danish group. It's got to be the second largest group about anything board game related in Denmark. So there's a lot of people who wants to design games in Denmark. We have a lot of interest for that. So the whole community, Kåre, he's also been part of that. There's something called Festival, which is a big role-playing and board gaming convention. They host an annual event where you can go and you can, if you get your game idea accepted, you can develop it and then you can present it at Festival as well. This goes both for role-playing games and for board games for some years. And so we're just deep in the rabbit hole of board game design community here in Denmark.
I was wondering about that because I have never been to Denmark, but it sounds like a very engaged community, and it's similar to what was described to me in particular actually about the Seattle community here in the United States, where there's a large assortment of board gamers who get together and do that sort of thing. That's obviously slightly different. That's a city over an entire country, but it's always interesting to see how those communities come together. Were you both involved in that community, or where did you two really actually connect with first?
I think we've both been attending Festival, and I think that was where we first got to know each other. But as a part of, you could say that the bigger active community of board game designers that are around Festival. So there may be like some 40-50 people who are on and off active in that, and then there are obviously a lot larger group who maybe attend once or twice. So that's where and everybody knows each other, but not that keenly. And then when, as Mads said, when I thought, okay, I would like to co-design with somebody, when I put a little bit more time and effort into designing board games, that's where Mads ended up on my short list, because I think he was a really nice guy who had some other skills than I had to bring to the table. So that was why I asked him back then.
And let's talk about this game, because Shake That City has as I think as Ryan, who's here, would say, it's got this really great toy factor, and that you've got this anticipation. You're shaking the box. Yeah, there it is. You're shaking that box, and that's at the core of the game. You're constantly going to be doing that throughout the game, which obviously is part of the design. So where did the idea for this game originally stem from?
Yeah, Mads came with the original idea, and the basic idea was, I think originally we were just sitting with a bag and tabletop simulator and drawing cubes in 2 colors out of it and making this grid. So can we do something with this? We like to call them random polyominoes or modular polyominoes. So instead of, like, if you take a patchwork, okay, there are these shapes, and then Mads had the idea, well, what if there are not an infinite, but a very large number of shapes, and the shapes can be disconnected and so on. What can we do with that? So that's actually where the the first idea originated, and then the shaker came actually some time later. And I think maybe Matt should tell that, because he was also the one who came up with the shaker idea.
Yeah, well, we were playing the game as it originally was designed, where we just pulled stuff out of a bag and put it on a 3x3 grid. And I just, after Kåre left one day, I just thought, well, there's got to be a quicker way of doing that. And I actually just had an idea for, that's a completely another game, but something about a pizza oven where you put in the pizza, I don't know what it's called, but the thing that you pull the pizza out of the pizza oven with, and it's supposed to drop some cubes into that. And I don't know even know if you know this, Kåre, but no, I was playing around with that, so I think that was kind of in the back of my head, and then I just thought, well, what if we just take a box and punch 9 holes in it and shake it up and lift it, and that worked. You just have to be like very careful about lifting it up, that no other extra cubes fell out of it, and later we also discovered there's this element of dexterity that wasn't intended on our part, but we had to fix that somehow, because you could look into the shaker and people might think, okay, so I have to shake it so that I get the perfect shake out of it while I'm looking at it, and that's not what we intended. So later we added a lid to it so you can't look into it, which also helps the cubes not fall out of it from the top. And also, most importantly, I think the layer in the middle, which is what actually holds the cubes from falling out, which if I press this right now, cubes are gonna drop, and I'm gonna do it just because I'm an idiot. So you can see what happens. But that's what's gonna happen, right? So don't do this when it's not on the table.
Don't do this at home.
Hanging in there. But that's basically what happens. It opens it up and then it closes up again. Now I'm gonna take
cubes all over the floor.
No, there's it is, but it is there's such a fun toy factor to that I know, just going at PAX Unplugged, seeing, excitement around this as a whole, people, they like that. So the concept and the idea behind it are one thing. Can you describe a little bit for everybody who does not and is less familiar with this game, a little bit about what this game entails? Because I don't want to assume everybody watching this immediately knows. I know it's on Kickstarter. I'm going to encourage people to go look up Shake That City if you're watching right now, because it's still there. But maybe you can give a really good description of the game for everyone.
Okay,
and either one of you.
Go ahead, Miss.
Whoever wants to do the pitch.
So, so we just described the shaker, right? And the shaker, it makes patterns of cubes. There's 5 different colors. There's a different distribution of each cube inside. So some are more rare than others. And you shake up the cube box, you push the lever, you lift it, and then you have this nice pattern that's 3x3. And in this pattern, you might have the cubes in 3 of the corners, which are the same color, right? So it might be a black and a black and a black cube. And that would mean if you choose black for a round, you'll have to copy that pattern exactly, which is basically like 3 singular polyominoes of just 1 by 1, right? But and in other games you would probably only just take one of those and place them one at a time. But with this shaker we can make what called modular polyominoes. So it means that when you're copying this pattern, here we go. So when you're copying this pattern down on your player board, it might interlock with something that you already placed that would otherwise have been like impossible to fill in with regular polyominoes. So that's the big satisfaction feeling that you get from this game, is that you can slot things in between where you couldn't before. So it kind of opens up the whole polyomino thing a little bit. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to place these different shapes next to each other, or colors basically, on your player board. So you replace the cubes with actual tiles. So the red ones are homes, for example, and so on. And they each score points differently depending on what they are next to and stuff like that. And then we have these are like bonus tiles that go around the edge. So you can score some extra points. For example, if you put 4 homes into one of those rows that it's pointing at, or actually it has to be exactly that row that it's pointing at, you can score 3 bonus points by flipping that tile. So that's, I guess, the gist of the game. Maybe Kåre, you can describe it.
Oh, I think it was. I think everything more would just be more explanation and not a lot. I think it was pretty clear.
There, Chewy Huey in the comments says it almost reminded him of almost like a
Yeah,
pyramid.
we've heard that so many times,
Yeah.
but it's like times 9, folks.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Actually, originally we also had dice in it. I think the from the first versions, the word die dice we were using in it as well. And then we were like, there's not gonna be something different on the different side. The complexity will explode, and then we were just back at cubes. So
yeah, it's and I always say it's funny because comparisons are not always fair. Sometimes they're true, sometimes they're not. But people do always associate with things. Because I was telling you both before, I see the cubes, my brain automatically associates cubes with, say, tiny towns.
Yeah,
right? And that's cubes are in every game. My brain goes to tiny towns, but everyone's got a game that they think of cubes. Can we talk a little bit about, though, the fact that ultimately you going through the design process, eventually you went to a pitch stage where you're trying to put this out and say, hey, we think this game is a great idea. We'd love for you to take a look at it. What is your process when going into a pitch or trying to, really sell your game? Because here it is on Kickstarter. So you've been successful in doing that, and not everyone is successful in that.
I think what actually we refined that a lot with Shake That City, which were the first game we designed together. We have others in the pipeline, but what we did there was we decided to make a 3-minute video where we really wanted to condense and focus on what makes this game unique, and that's really also seen from the publisher side. What is the hook? What is this? What, as a publisher, how am I gonna make this game stand out? So we make sure to put emphasis on this and explain enough of the game so you have some sort of idea if this is a working, this is not just an idea, but actually a working game. And then we use this video to, and I think also we I don't remember if we did a sell sheet initially, but we did eventually. But distribute this video around, because seeing a 3-minute video is something you can find time for, and it's a good exercise to really say, well, I have to be able to explain my game in 3 minutes. And I think that has served us well as a sort of, and also for other games, as a sort of a business card, but also not just presenting ourselves, but also saying we actually have something here, and we know how to think this, not just in terms of making a great game, but also how are you as a publisher going to sell this game and make people interested in it.
Yeah, I think the fact that, well, when you already did, you explained the game very, very quickly, and I think that it makes sense within a short time span, and that's not something you can do for every game. But for a publisher, they also, I have to imagine, see so many, so that's got to be a critical piece of it. That they get a lot of pitches at the I saw people trying to pitch a game, when I was walking by, and like we're not doing that right now, or they're just trying to run a booth. So getting their attention it's hard. Speaking though of the process of the game from a playtesting perspective, you mentioned the group earlier. Are you out in your community with this game in some way, playtesting? Because in particular, you were talking about during a time of COVID. So I'm very interested if it was, Tabletopia or other platforms that you were doing as your core playtesting.
Yeah, I think most of our playtesting at that time was Tabletop Simulator, again, which is kind of weird because the really attraction in this game is something that's not very easy to implement in Tabletop Simulator. We did try, and we ultimately didn't put effort into that and just drew cubes out of a bag on Tabletop Simulator. But we did a lot of online testing with people we knew, and also you were also very good at that mass testing with a lot of other people. And actually, we were, except when we met up, because with the rules that were at that time, you could meet with a select few people and so on. So we occasionally met up, and then we tested together. But I think testing it actually physically with other people was not that much before it was signed, considerably more after.
Yes.
And we are not living in the same town either. I mean, for Americans, it probably not be much. We are living like an hour or something and a little bit apart. But that's a long distance in Denmark. So it's not as communities go, we actually are, have different communities in our respective cities with other designers and so on, which is an advantage because we can test two places, but not as such belong to the same community. And then again, everybody in Denmark is sort of in the same community and some other, because we are not that many people.
It sounds like a great working relationship, though, because you are in different communities, you're working over these channels, and here you are finding the success with it. Have you had much chance to get together to test, or is really a lot and play, and whether it be this or any other board games, or is most of your interactions over the course of this time actually been on on the internet at this point?
I would say it's sort of 50-50. It's close to that, but it's only because of COVID. This was like a COVID child, so we just yeah.
If you for both of you, if you were to get together to play a game in person for each of you, what one would you let's go off the cuff a little bit here. What game would you want to bring to the table with each other outside of your own?
If we want to just play,
just get together for a game, like what are you bringing to the table at this point?
I want to play Planet Unknown with Kåre. I don't own the game. It's on Tabletop Simulator, so I've invited him a few times to play it with me, but we haven't made that happen yet. It's a polyomino game, and it's supposed to be super good, so I just want to play that. Yeah.
Actually, it's not that long since I met up with Mads and did bring a game we had to play.
Oh yeah.
And I will not mention the game here because the reason why I bought the game was I had bought the game and I played it once with my wife, and I thought it was a horrible game. I did not understand why it was a game. It had cats on it, and that's why I was lured into it. But and I simply needed to understand.
It was not
am
Calico.
I missing something? It's not Calico. No. It's I don't think it's not a known publisher, and I guess it's not something you would see a lot of places. But and I really had to understand: am I missing something? But I think in general, when I bring games where we want to play together, I must admit, I'm often bringing a game because there's something that fascinates me or it gives me some sort of idea. So I guess I often have this in the back of my mind about designing a game, like this game has this mechanic that we actually also talked about, but a little different. Let's try and play it and see if there's something in it here. So.
Yeah, Ryan, who had chimed in earlier, who I do the channel with, has wanted me to play Cosmic Frog for the longest time, and I finally played Cosmic Frog over PAX Unplugged, and I've been fascinated by the game. It's that same kind of thing, like fascinated. Does this work, and how does this work, and is literally planning for complete chaos? Actually, does that function? And apparently it does. I learned because I love the game, but it is a wonderful experience when you get to kind of experiment with that. When it comes for both of you, is there any particular, you've both mentioned kind of a style game that you learned on, but right now, how much time do you really spend getting to play games versus designing? Has the breakdown changed for you since designing and kind of looking forward at whatever else you might design? Because a lot of designers I've talked to, they don't get to spend as much time playing as that they would personally like. And we'll start with go ahead. It looks like you're starting there.
I'll start.
Start
so as you can see here behind me, if I can get it right, this is something that I organize I live in like a small suburb outside of one of the bigger cities here in Denmark, and I lend out most of my own board games for this. It's like a open board game nights, so it's once a week, and we have some Sundays we meet as well and stuff like that. And there's not a lot of designers going there, if any. So I get to at least play with those people once a week, roughly. So that hasn't changed, but it's a hustle being a game designer, because if you have a game, you also just want to bring it and test it with people, and where else to do it than the regular game nights that you go to. So it's a bit of a tough balance, I find, to not go too deep down that rabbit hole, because you don't want to turn people off playing your crappy games because some of them are really crap. There's no denying that, but you don't really know it until you try it. So my best advice would probably be that you meet up with other game designers, and that everybody there would be understanding that, okay, we are testing something that might not work. And also you get much better feedback from other designers. They can loop you in like miles down the road and just tell you need to fix this that way because of this, where a normal board game player will probably not know which words to put into it, and you have to decipher that some way, and you'll go back and you'll think, is that really true? And I try to play as many games as I can with other designers, and that's also why I enjoy going to a festival we talked about before. This big gaming convention. It's 5 days over Easter, so it's a lot of days where you just get to talk game design and play other designers' games.
I think for my part, I think actually it varies a lot. In some periods, I don't play that many games because it's mostly designing when I have time for that. But what I actually have done a bit more organized, and might sound a bit boring, but I play a lot of games because I hear something about them. So, and it's not necessarily because I think, oh, this is a good game for me, but because I think if so many people are fascinated about this game, I need to try it out. So I get to play many more different games than I used to. I think I used to find 1 or 2 games I was happy about, and then I played that all the time for months, and then changed over, and now I play a lot of different games and really want to try games, and also play a lot of games I don't like. But you have to try them to figure it out. There's also a lot of good ones in between. So I played the 5 or 6 games yesterday with a couple of friends. So
yeah, and
pretty regular.
And there's and part of it too. I always imagine, and from talking to designers in the past, it's learning new ideas and getting inspiration, and there's mechanics to test out. By the way, Chewy Huey says that he loves Denmark, the happiest place. I've never been. So it sounds like though, like I said, an hour for the record, I wanted to say this because I live in New Jersey, and anytime that anything is an hour away from us, we do consider that far. Like I don't want to.
Okay, good.
I don't want to go. I don't want to drive an hour personally.
No.
So if you're not alone, that's certainly something here. I've been really interested. I love the fact of how you both came together for this game. And I have to ask, I know you may not have anything to share, but do you continue to work together on anything, either individually or together?
Yeah, we went to Essen this year, and did we only have one game that we co-designed?
I think we only had one common game we were pitching.
Yeah. But otherwise, we went to all the meetings together, nevertheless. And I think one of the games that shows best potential of those is the one that we made together. And we are also meeting with the publisher. Is it later this week?
I think it's Tuesday next week.
Yeah. So there's some interest there, and they want us to probably work on the game and take it in some direction that they are thinking about, and see if it could be a match for them. So yeah, we're excited about that. But we keep working on games. Yeah,
and I think we have a handful or so of games that are not pitch ready, but we are actively working on. So we have a lot of things actually ongoing together.
No, it's exciting, and I'm sure people are excited to see what you're coming up with. I really appreciate it, and I always find it helpful with what you shared earlier, which was talking about how you pitch to a publisher, because I'm sure a lot of people who would love to be designers out there who have not put their kind of hand in that pot yet. But I always like to ask this question. I think it's really important, and you all have given some good advice already. But what would both of you give advice-wise to someone who is interested in being a designer right now, who's watching you and saying, man, I wish I had made a game, or I want to make a game, or I've got this game that I've been playing around with, and I don't know, I haven't pitched it to anyone. What's the advice you give to those people? And we can start on the bottom and work our way up here.
I think you have to.
I'm the bottom. Okay. So my first advice would be to get it out of your head. If you have an idea in your head, get it out of your head. That means just make any prototype. It doesn't need to look good at all. Use whatever you have, like Post-it notes or whatever, and a pen. That's fine. A couple of dice, and you're probably ready to test out some core ideas about what your game, how it's supposed to play. So get it out of your head. That's the first advice. And once you have something that's playable, show it to other designers, because other designers, they will just tell you so much easier what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. So find any design community. There's online communities if you don't have any local ones, so you can get your game loaded into like a tabletop simulator or stuff like that, and you can play it with other designers this way. And the final advice I think I'm gonna give is that don't put everything into one game. So you think, I like all of these different ingredients. Like if you're making a soup, you don't take the beef and the red wine and then put in vanilla and chocolate ice cream, because they all taste very nice individually, but you're not making a better soup putting everything together, right? So yeah.
Solid advice.
Yeah, that was some. I think we have very similar design philosophies, me and Matt. So he said a lot of the things I could have said as well, and I very much support that. I think if I should add something to that, then it would be that I'm a bit of a perfectionist by nature, and I have found that to be a hindrance rather than a help. So what I'm really trying to do, and I'm not always successful, what I'm really trying to do is put as little effort into what I'm doing before I progress. So as Matt said, as little effort as possible before I test, as little effort from there before I make the next iteration, as little test as possible. And actually the same, in my opinion, goes for the pitching. So you don't have to have everything polished and ready. As soon as you have something that you think is fun, or that you can see people think is fun, pitch it. Don't spend all the other time, because then it'll quickly show if there's something in it or if there isn't. And if there isn't, dump it again. Don't spend time on leave it be. Don't say it's totally skipped out. Just put it on a pause if you need to do that mentally, because you can't drop it, but start working on something else and do it again. So because practice is also interesting, and the second game you make will be so much easier process than the first.
I just want to add to that the version of the shaker that we pitched the game with was just the box with the 9 holes in it. It did not have a lid. It did not have the fancy contraption that closes it up again or anything like that. So, and we had lots of interest from different publishers still. So yeah,
that's awesome here. I think people probably do overthink, especially because components right now are something that people talk a lot about. The expectation from the modern gamer is really strong components at this point. I mean, there's a reason why Castles of Burgundy is now on its like 3rd or 4th different version, and it's completely spruced up, so it's it's to say the least, it's certainly something on the mind of people. We do have one question coming in here, and it's, what have you been playing lately?
So I regularly play Terraforming Mars, but I actually do that solo on my phone. That's sort of my recreation. So besides that, because I always have to count that out, because it's by far the game I play the most. The last game I played was actually Clank, with 3 players who knew it and 1 who didn't, and that's always interesting to see people find a good classic and figure out why it's so well known.
I have 2 answers for that. So one of them is Battleship. I have a son who's never played that before. He's just turned 7, so we played Battleship. That was kind of a fun experience to watch him play that. And the other thing is that we are playing this,
of course.
Which is called the Daily Shake. That's Shake That City in a sort of like a print and play version that you can play from home. So if you want to check out our game, you can go and you can actually try and play it for free. Just need to print one of these sheets. It doesn't have all these nice buildings and such. It's me who've been drawing that. So yeah, and it's at you can go to alderac.com daily shake. I think that's just in one word. And you can print this nice sheet, and then you can find on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, anywhere, I guess, where there's people. You can find here it is. You can find the videos for which shakes you actually have to follow. So you just hop in from shake number 1, and then you follow it all the way up to shake number 13, which is where we're at now. So you can still play it. We've been revealing one pattern a day. Yeah, you can see them there. Yeah. So just don't cheat and look too far ahead. That's cheating. So totally only supposed to look at one at a time. But yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And this is so simple. It's just a print and play that they can easily download. So that's awesome to see. That's alltheract.com daily shake. I do want to make sure I show this to everyone. Just a heads up for everybody that congratulations at where you're at. You're at as of now, 45,000 over a $10,000 goal. So that's awesome. But it looks like the game is going to be up here. You got 7 more days from the time that this is airing. If you have any questions, certainly about the game, I know both of you are on social media and other places. So if you could share a little bit where people can reach you if they do have any questions, I think that'd be just in case so they could follow up.
Yeah, mine is I'm on Twitter. It's Mads, and then it's Fløe, the last name here. It's just use an O instead of the O with the thingy, and yeah. Otherwise, I'm on Facebook as well. I guess you can find me here if you search for my name. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm the same places, and I'm. Oh yeah, my name is even worse than Mads's.
We'll tell you what. We'll put them in we'll make it easy for everyone. I'll get into the show notes. You can find it right there. I want to thank you both for taking time to come on. I know this is a little bit different time for everybody who normally watches the channel that we do this, but whenever we're working with time zones, that's what happens. And I really appreciate you both working with your schedules to come on. Really excited to see the success of it. And I did want to note, because I had not noted this beforehand, I had looked at the Kickstarter, but really the one thing that stood out to me immediately as I went to that Kickstarter page was the price differential from what you will be paying. So if you have interest in this game, honestly, it looks like it's a good opportunity to jump on it now. I did, like I said, get a chance to see at PAX Unplugged, and a lot of excitement around it. So I wish both of you all of the best. I do want to quickly also take a quick moment to let everybody know what's coming up on our channel. So please lock it in and plan to be here on the 13th of December. The 13th of December at 9 p.m. We are going to be doing something a little special, and that is PAX Unplugged, call aboard, and we're going to have some fun with this one. So join in. It's our live call-in show. Everyone is welcome, and we're going to be kind of unearthing all the great stuff we saw at PAX Unplugged. With that said,
awesome.
Yeah, with all that said, guys, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you wanted to say or get out before we end the show?
I just want to say thank you to you, Chris, for reaching out to us and for making it possible. You said something about time zones and such. I think it's more inconvenient for you than it was for us. So thank you for that. And for the people behind the screens, the scenes, whatever you call it. I'm not sure. Just, I guess, a shout out to AG, the publisher, Alderac, for publishing our game. We were so excited about that. So all the lovely people there. Big thumbs up. Yeah.
Yes, I think Mads got around it pretty well.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I appreciate both of you joining. I will look forward to seeing everyone on Tuesday night at 9 p.m. and wishing everybody a great evening or a great afternoon, depending where you are when you're watching this. And we will see you all soon. Thank you for coming aboard the Tabletop.